Okay, roll call.
Commissioners George Salgin, Deborah Van Essen, David Collins, Steve Stevenson, Jeff Vayu,
Here.
Stephen Barber.
Thank you. Okay, this is our time for public discussion. This time is provided to the public to address the Planning Commission on items not on the agenda. State law, however, prohibits the commission from taking action on any of these items. Each person will be limited to no more than 5 minutes of discussion time, and the total allotted time for discussion shall not exceed 30 minutes. Okay. Time to approve the minutes from the June meeting.
I will move to approve.
Okay. Last month's meetings are adopted. Okay, so we are moving into the public hearing portion of our meeting. And we will be discussing the 6-month extension of the hotel for Venture Hospitality Clausen Corporation, the Town Place Suites. This is a request for a second extension. Ken, do you have anything for the staff report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and fellow commissioners. In the staff report here, in February 2022, Planning Commission approved a request from Venture Hospitality to construct a 4-story, 91-room townhouse place suites by Marriott Hotel in the C4 commercial district over on the other side of town there, next to Angle Petroleum in that vacant lot. Pursuant to the Ripon Municipal Code, all approvals granted under this title shall expire 2 years from the date of approval unless a building permit has been issued for the project, which it has not at this point. The code does allow for up to a 1-year time extension upon approval by the Planning Commission, and any extension requests are entirely within the purview of the reviewing body, and findings need not be made. To date, the applicant has been working diligently through the various conditions of approval for the project, which included a fair amount of off-site improvements such as undergrounding of overhead utilities, partial dedication and improvements to East Main Street, installation of streetlights, landscaping and hardscaping of the Caltrans abutment, which is along the whole back side of their project. These conditions of approval, especially the conditions dealing with Caltrans right away, have taken longer than expected to resolve. So in February 2024, the applicant requested and received a 6-month extension on their project entitlements in front of this Planning Commission. They are now asking for one more additional 6-month extension on their project, citing continued delays in working with Caltrans. So they are now anticipating breaking ground in February 2025. This extension, if granted, would be their final extension pursuant to the code. And as a final note, all the original conditions of approval on the project will remain intact. So at this time, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman. We'll remind you that this is a public hearing, so you'll have to open that up, and then I'll happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so yes, this is a public hearing. The use permit extension request for the developer Venture Hospitality for the Planning Commission to approve an additional 6-month time extension for the Town Place Suites by Marriott project that was approved in February of 2022. Should the Planning Commission agree with the staff's recommendation, the following motion would be appropriate. The Planning Commission would approve an additional 6-month extension request for the use permit UP 21-89 Town Place Suites by Marriott project based on the findings and subject to the conditions of the approval of the original staff report. Is there anybody proponent that would like to speak on behalf of the project? Is there anybody here who would like to speak for not extending? Okay.
I think with George not being here and Jeff having to, Jeff having to fill in, he wasn't given our sheet on explaining the,
Thank you.
yeah. So we need to explain the public hearing before we get any further in the process.
And I'm happy to chime in here and just give some assistance. All you need to do, Mr. Chair, would be to just bang the gavel and just say that the public hearing is now open. And then,
But it's nice
At
to
that-
explain the process for the people. who are-
absolutely,
yeah,
of course. And that sheet would
Yeah.
do so succinctly.
So, yeah. Yeah. So give the order of testimony and all of that.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, so if you wish to testify, myself, the chairman, will recognize you, approach the podium, state your name and address, and present your testimony. And the order of testimony is the applicant, which is not here, those in favor, which no one is coming up, and those in opposition, and any time for rebuttal. Okay, after all testimony has been given, the chairman will close the public hearing discussion.
I just have a question, Ken. I know when we talked about this 6 months ago, we kind of talked about maybe just giving them a whole year, and I guess we decided that they didn't want a whole year.
Their original request was for 6 months, so that's what their request letter was. So that's what we granted. So yeah, almost expired. So then now they're back for their second 6 months. They should have just asked for a year, which was fine, but they didn't do that.
PG&E, because I know they can be really slow as well. You're citing Caltrans as being the delay, but is PG&E?
It could be some of
Moving along.
PG&E as well, but they could actually start the project, pulling permits and grading and all that such to get the project moving without having all that finalized.
Okay.
So it could be a combination of those and even maybe just financing and trying to line some of that stuff up. But
Okay. Okay. All right.
Mr. Comment, it was a good project 2 years ago. It's still a good project. It's a nice fit for that area. After the discussion, I'd be glad to make a motion.
Any other discussion?
I have none.
Okay, I will make the recommended action motion that the planning commission approves an additional 6 months extension request for use permit UP 21-89 Town Place Suites by Marriott project based on the findings and subject to the conditions and approval of the original staff.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, now we'll move on to discussion items. Major site review, SR 24-42, 923 South Acacia Avenue. That's a request to construct two 2,800 square foot buildings. First building near the entrance will function as a single-story office building, which will include 12 offices. The second building will be used as a storage warehouse. The vacant parcel is 3,349 square feet and is located on South Acacia Avenue, slightly north of Doak Boulevard in the M1, which is the light industrial district.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. Got a little bit of a presentation here, maybe on these TVs here. There we go. So essentially, you already kind of described the project about being the two 2,800 square foot buildings located at 923 South Acacia. You can see from the vicinity map where that location is. It's a vacant parcel towards the end of South Acacia Avenue. The proposed office building will be located towards the front half of the property, while the warehouse building is located more towards the rear half of the property, as you can see on the site plan. The proposed buildings will have the following setbacks. The office building will be about approximately 40 feet from the front property line, which is along Acacia Avenue. And the warehouse building will sit about 180 feet back from the front property line. The rear setbacks for the buildings, the office building will sit approximately 200 feet from the rear property line, the western property line. And the warehouse will be about 56 feet off that western property line. And then the interior side setbacks, the north property line, the buildings will sit about 70 feet from that northern property line, which abuts some rental housing down in the light industrial zone. And the interior side setback on the south property line is proposed at 12 feet. Minimum setbacks for the light industrial district are typically 20, with an exception built into the development code for rear and side setback reductions based upon approval by the planning commission. Due to the narrow nature of the parcel, the applicant is seeking a reduction of the interior side setback from the south property line. Both city staff and the Ripon Consolidated Fire Department has reviewed the setback reduction request and do not have any issues with the request. Additionally, the neighboring property owner to the south was notified of the setback reduction request and did not pose any objections to the request either. What's that? South property line? Yeah, it'll be a 12-foot setback off that south property line.
He didn't object.
No, yeah, no objections. Here's an overview, just an overhead view of the site plan as well. So building design, the exterior of the buildings appear to be masonry concrete block with a shed style roof structure. The proposed warehouse building will be approximately 24 feet in height at its tallest point, and the office building will be approximately 22 feet in height at its tallest point. The building height does comply with the municipal code for maximum building height requirements, which is 35 feet or 2 stories. Just for reference, the neighboring Kaizen River development on Doak Boulevard, those building heights are about 25 feet. So it's kind of consistent with the neighboring buildings. Some other views of the elevations here for you. Access to the site will be provided by one new commercial driveway approach off of Acacia Avenue. Along with the driveway approach, new curb gutter and sidewalk will be installed across the property frontage. The off-street parking facility provides for a total of 17 spaces, which meets the required parking spaces by local regulations. And all the stalls meet the city standard dimensions, which are 10 by 19. Additionally, the site plan depicts a few on-site truck parking stalls to serve the needs of the primary business, which are located towards the rear of the site. The site plan depicts storage bins located at the rear of the site. The storage bins are actually pallets of material stored on metal racking systems. This is an example of the metal racking system that would be installed. Pursuant to the Ripon Municipal Code, the applicant is required to construct an 8-foot masonry wall at the rear of the property where the project site abuts residential zoning. The applicant has requested the city allow them to construct a 12-foot masonry wall across the back property line to allow for more or higher bin storage. The higher masonry wall would allow for more storage racking and still provide privacy to the residentially zoned parcels. The 8-foot masonry wall requirement is considered a minimum, and although not typical, the commission has approved masonry walls taller than 8 foot for non-residential projects, such as the Acacia Avenue Mini Storage, which is right down the street. They have about a 9.5-foot masonry wall as part of their project. And then the Lux Apartments on the other side of town, where the apartments are separated from the commercial over there, that's a 14-foot masonry wall separating those two. Landscaping on the plan, the landscaping will be focused at the front of the site and on the south side property line. The site plan indicates approximately 13% of landscaping, which slightly exceeds the city's minimum or standard requirement of 10% for light industrial districts. The applicant has not submitted any landscape plans or any detailed plans to date. However, they will be required to be submitted and approved prior to final on the project. The site plan does not indicate any site lighting either. However, a detailed lighting plan will have to be submitted and approved by the police department and the planning department. And all lighting has to be shielded from neighboring properties so that no glare actually leaves the site. So they would have no glare on the residential sites near it. Trash enclosure, let's see. You can see the trash enclosure is located along the north property line. Towards the back of the site, will be a trash enclosure with a roof system, which is the city standard. And then lastly, there's some right-of-way abandonment. It's kind of difficult to make out there, but there's a little bit of property along Acacia Avenue that is extra right-of-way. And once the ultimate improvements get put in with the project, there would be extra right-of-way that is going to be abandoned and dedicated to the project site. So the applicant is required to submit a abandonment application to formally go through that process, so we can appropriately abandon that section of Acacia Avenue. Project referral was sent out to all affected agencies, and all the comments that we received back have been incorporated into the staff report that's in front of you here this evening. There is a recommended action in the staff report as well, along with all the project conditions. And at this point, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman, and be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Just really quickly, Ken, the northern fence, from looking at the current page 2.1, it looks like it's 4 foot, but on the drawings, it says the existing wood fence is to remain?
The applicant will be required to put a chain link fence along their property line. I'm not sure exactly where that wood fence lies. If it's on the property line, then it probably would come down. If it's not on the property line, the chain link could be put up without disturbing that wood fence.
And we would expect that would normally be at least 6 feet probably, or likely 6 foot.
Yeah.
And screened because of the rentals that are,
Yeah, so the requirement's black coated chain link fence with privacy slats.
okay, thank you.
If I remember right, we approved a project here a number of years ago already. Well, I mean, it would have been a different project for this property, didn't we? I think we had a long discussion about the fence on that, along that street that leads into the housing district there, didn't we? You remember that?
That's the next one over.
Oh, okay, okay.
But you-
Yeah,
okay.
several years back, we did one on a parcel just south of that already has the
Across the street.
masonry wall.
Okay, okay. Do we know what kind of business is going in there? Or is that something I can ask the applicant?
You can ask the applicant here tonight to speak.
Okay, is there anybody here, proponent for this applicant? Okay. Yep, please state your name and your address, please.
Eddie Erdelatz, and I reside at 1176 Bogarin Lane here in Ripon. Your question was what type of business? I really have nothing to present other than what Ken's presented, what we have turned in. I'm here to answer questions. I know my neighbors are here as well.
Yeah, so I'm curious,
It's a construction business.
So you are going to.
I'm going, yeah, I'm going to build, develop, and run my business from this location.
And then, do you anticipate any, like evening or night, activity as far as trucks going in and out and?
No, it should be
unloading
nothing
stuff?
in the evening or night. It would be within the hours that are specified for the zoning, but nothing specific to the night.
Okay,
Mostly daytime operation. It's a construction business. Early mornings and getting out of there and probably being closed up by 5:30.
okay.
Mr. Erdelatz, a 12-foot wall is really high. Have you discussed that with any of the neighbors?
Just a little bit here. I didn't even really know who my neighbors were until I saw them here, and I know both of them.
Okay. And I think the intention is to get more storage of materials and woods.
Well, it really doesn't help with the storage as much as it really, and we're trying to help with the neighbors, shielding them from looking at the storage.
Okay.
And so even if we have 12-foot racking on the north and the south property lines, it's going to be seen over that, the adjacent wall the abutting wall that we're talking about. So our hope was to try to help the neighbors out so they're not looking at construction materials on racking, even if it's not on that adjacent property line. If it's on the east of the north of the south, they're still going to be able to see it if the wall is short. So whether it be a 10-foot wall or a 12-foot wall, we just want to go as high as we can really for them. So if that's not something that the neighbors want to see, they want it to be lower and would rather look at the racking, because that is, from my understanding, within a right to do that.
Okay. How high would you estimate the rack and storage would be on there?
Ken, I know we turned in a height to you. Do you remember?
Yeah, I don't know. I think
It's right at that 12-foot height.
Yeah, I think it was right at that 12-foot height.
I think that's why we chose the 12-foot wall.
Thank you.
Eddie, will there be any deliveries in the early morning to that location?
There would be, yeah. I mean, it's pretty common, whether it be the dumpster being picked up or potentially materials being delivered.
Okay.
How early is early? How early is early?
5, 6.
Would that be a daily occurrence, multi-daily occurrence?
No, I wouldn't say it would be a daily occurrence. It'd be something, it's probably going to occur a couple times a week. Majority of the deliveries really take place in the middle of the day, but you just don't know sometimes things show up.
I don't think the garbage trucks are out there that early.
No, maybe not. So it might be more isolated, but I know things end up showing up, in this business.
So even if there are backup alarms from your vehicles backing out of the location, assuming that they might back out of your location, any concern with the noise, if the 12-foot wall would help minimize that
Sure.
noise?
Sure. I think the block wall certainly would help with some of that, Jeff. Yeah, again, whatever activity we plan on having will obviously be within the hours of operation that were specified for the zoning. We certainly want to minimize it for the neighbors as well.
Are there hours specified, Ken?
I'd have to look that up. We do have hours of operation for in different zones or noise. We actually have noise
Right.
decibel ratings that are allowed in different
Right.
zones in different hours. I'd
Right.
have to look that up really quick.
Ed Willie looked it up, fuel tanks, are they buried or?
I'm sorry?
Fuel tanks above ground or buried?
Oh, above ground. Yep. Again, that's something that we also discussed with fire chief also.
Okay. They prefer above ground?
I'm sorry?
The fire chief-
Yeah, he was fine with it. Obviously it's got to meet requirements of containment and so forth. But yeah, he's okay with the above ground tanks and their location. Thank you.
Any other questions? For the
I
applicant?
think it's the south property line, that block wall, where you have the 12-foot offset. How high are you talking about on that wall? Is that like an 8-foot?
Is the southern a block wall, Ken? That's a chain link, isn't it, on the southern fence line?
Yeah, the southern abuts another light industrial lot, so that's not a requirement for the masonry wall. It's just be the western
It'd
property
be the
line.
chain link.
The chain link would be on the northern, and then whatever you'd want to put on the southern.
We're planning on doing a chain link on the southern as well. There's actually an existing small CMU wall with metal fence posts sticking out of it. If you drive by, see it. So we're just going to piggyback right off of that and run chain link.
So that's right on the property line? Or no, that would be 12 feet off the property line or?
That's the property line. The building would be 12 feet off of that fence.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Looks like a nice improvement from what is there currently, so that's wonderful. Is there any proponent testimony? Who would like to come up in favor of the project? Okay. Is there any opponent to the testimony? Okay. If you'd like to come up, state your name and your address, please.
Ward Skimper, 691 DePadrini Drive in Ripon, a neighbor to the project. I'm not an opponent of the project, but I did have a couple of questions, or I think some of my questions got answered. The plan shows that the southern wall is actually a block wall. At least that's what it says on this. And my thought when I saw that was, why would you put the block wall there? I would put the block wall against the residential side and not against if I had to put a block wall up, that's where I would put it. The other thing on the west wall, is that is closest to me. Does the business, I mean, does it have the ability of creating rodents or rats or any issues like that? On the ongoing business? Okay, okay. I mean, that's just a concern as a neighborhood. I just, I don't want something in there that's got feed bags or something like that. That's, it's, so, yeah, it's my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your testimony. Any further
Find something
questions?
about
Yeah,
the
yeah,
line?
dude, I've got a couple clarifying
Okay.
comments for you guys if you want. So the decibel rating for light industrial, it's actually any time, so there's not a time frame on it. It's 70 decibels. So just in comparison, nighttime hours in residential is 50, and then daytime noise ratings would be 60. But there's some allowances that can go higher than that if there's someone's mowing their lawn and stuff like that. So industrial's a little bit louder at 70 decibels. As far as the southern block wall, I did see that on the plans. I think that the plans was referencing there is a small retaining wall that's somewhat blocked there, and then that's why I think they would put the chain link on top of. It's more of a retaining wall because there's probably some elevation differences between the two. So I think it should have said existing block wall, retaining wall. It's not intended to be any higher. And then the condition of approval, a couple conditions of approval on the project. And one is that if the 12-foot masonry wall along the back, if the commission is okay with it being that height. Another condition on there was that no material can be stacked, so it would stack up higher than the 12-foot masonry wall.
That answered my question. Thank you.
No?
You want to see those trucks going by?
I do have one more question for the applicant. Is there any prefab that takes place there? No.
Well, I know the neighbors are real excited about a 12-foot masonry wall because it might slow down the squirrels.
That is important. Any other questions, comments from commission?
It's, I like the layout that they, kept the parking by the residential area. You know, the 24-foot structures with morning sun, especially in winter, could significantly, so I think it's a good layout. It is a nice movement, and as long as the 12-foot wall is not objectionable to the neighbors, I think it looks like a great project.
Ken, what is the zoning behind? Is that residential or is that light industrial directly behind the southern, that bare parcel that's adjacent to residential?
So are you talking about on the
The
one
dirt.
just south of this?
Correct.
It's all light industrial. Both sides of actually the site are light industrial. On the north side of the site, there is some housing over there, but that's it's zoned light industrial. And then the hopes and desires at some point is that those would be taken out and the light industrial use would be put in that location.
Got it. Okay.
If it's okay with the guys, I'm ready to make a motion that we approve the major site plan permit SR 24-42 for 923 South Acacia Avenue based on the findings and subject to the conditions of the staff report.
Okay, the motion has been adopted.
You don't want to stay? Talk about a lot of exciting things.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time tonight. Have a great evening.
Bye.
Ken, anything from staff?
No, so just a quick report. I think we are getting close to having the extension request ready for the planning commission. The goal is to have that in front of the commission at next month's commission meeting. And I think that's about the only item we have. We just got all the environmental documentation, environmental report back, and traffic study for the Arcway service station and convenience market that wants to locate on that corner over there. So staff was in the process of reviewing that. It'll have to go out for comment period with the environmental, and then we will get that scheduled for the next available planning commission. So that'll either hit in September or October, depending on how quickly we can get through that. So those are the two items that we've got kind of in the pipeline at this point. There will be in August, and there will be in there'll possibly be a September, but correct. And we are actually this Wednesday, we are releasing our draft out for public comment of our housing element, which will be coming in front of you guys in probably December. If you guys would like, you could review that. It's a really fun read of about 250 pages. And so you can review that document, and then I think following, not next week, but the following week, the last week of July, I think there'll be a couple workshops. There's going to be one that's available via Zoom, and then we will have an evening workshop here in the chambers. I'm trying to solidify those dates, but I will let you know because they do like people to come out to those workshops and provide comment. And it's important for the state to see that there are some people actually attending these workshops. So if you'd like to see kind of where the state's pushing us with housing, and it seems like every time we do a housing element, which is every 8 years, so this will be good till 2031. The state seems to keep tightening those screws a little bit, and the programs that we have to implement are getting a little more stringent and time consuming for staff, obviously. So yeah, I will share that draft with you guys, a link, and then let you know about the workshop dates. Yeah. Yeah, so we will be doing the second round now that the draft is out. And like I said, if you guys read through it and have questions, please feel free to reach out to staff. I've read through it a couple times. It will be Wednesday. We'll have the
Okay.
full draft out. I'll provide a link to that.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned.